strong advice is that we should take 2021 very seriously.
Indeed.
Now, the Ministry of the Environment, through the DVRP project, undertook construction on a new Met office located in Jimmet. What is the update on this?
Yes, we do have a new two-story, 3,980 square feet building, a climate resilient Met office building, and that is completed in Jimmet. While the process to outfit the building is ongoing, which would be to provide utilities, furniture, equipment, internet and telephone services, appliances, and also staffing is required for the functionality of that building. Now also we have the installation of automatic water level stations, and that is ongoing, and we also expecting to see the installation of automatic weather stations to begin later in the month.
Okay. Now Mr. Pascal, your ministry, your office, sorry, is preparing for the eventuality of severe weather events. Where are we on this?
PM, the ODM has been working to enhance the NEPO mechanism to prepare for and respond to any hazardous impact. We have updated protocols for emergency support functions like relief management, emergency communications, EOC operations, shelter management, and damage assessment. We have enhanced the emergency communication plans through the same NEPO mechanism, informed by best practices, as you know, given the past experiences of Erica and Naria, and even more so recently in our sister island state where we had this volcanic event. So we have enhanced the emergency communication coordination. We have also strengthened partnerships with key stakeholders, including the private sector, the public sector, and the NGOs. And the ODM has also taken steps to ensure that there are contingency arrangements in place at both the national and the regional level for the provision of surge support should that become necessary during or after an event.
But what new initiatives, though, have you as the national coordinator taken, and of course the ODM, you know, the ministry, in the past year to improve our national disaster response?
PM, as you know, we have been battling with COVID, so we are now operating into the various districts and communities. So far, we have 3 district committees. They are in the north, in the south, and in the east, and we intend to have more as time goes by so that they can give us adequate support in the various districts and communities.
Now, we have the National Emergency Planning Organization, and within that organization, we have several subcommittees, and we also have functional area heads. How prepared, though, are these various committees to respond to national disaster, God forbid if we were to have one?
Okay, the ODM has been working with the various NEPO subcommittees, and we have Mr. Toussaint there, and we have been working with them so that they can advance their preparedness. And this is a continuous process. We have met with the respective chairs, and also the chairs have been meeting with their various subcommittees. So, for example, for relief management, we are trying to improve the relief management and to enhance the decentralization of storage. We do not want something to happen in the island, God forbid, and everyone is running to Roseau. So we're planning to decentralize storage in terms of erecting container pads and having secure containers with relief storages throughout the country. And we are looking at a district approach. So we're looking at 7+1 of these container pads. We work closely with the police. The police is responsible for telecommunications. So we have been going around installing VHF radios and also repeaters. This has been carried out by Sergeant Joseph Raymond. We have the field hospital to complement the many shelters, the health centers around the island. We have complemented them with a 40-bed field hospital, and we just had training with the assembly and disassembly of this facility. And we have supported the shelter committee. Mr. Toussaint is there. We have went out on various visits and assessments, and also we have done training in partnership with the IOM to ensure that the shelter managers are trained and they have updated protocols and procedures given COVID-19.
Now, how have we sought to increase capacity and empower people to respond to disaster at the community level? Do we have more of our citizens trained in disaster preparedness?
Certainly, PM. The ODM continues to build capacity at the various levels, that is the community, the district, and the national level. Just last year, we had 300 people trained in emergency communication, shelter management, and relief management. We also, in fact, we're planning now to have a community evacuation exercise and a simulation exercise in Layo in July of this year, so that we can test our evacuation plan and shelter operations. And this will inform the procedures and protocols for the new regional shelters, which are now being constructed. We have also conducted our own internal preparedness activities. We just completed a hurricane tabletop exercise where we tested the coordination of partners during a hurricane event, and Marshall was there, and Tuset was also there. Later on this month, we plan to train 60 persons in emergency operations and also radio communications in the north. And so we have a number of persons trained, and we will continue to do so once the resources are available.
Please.
I just want to add to what Fitzroy has said, that we are also partnering with the Dominica Association of Persons with Disabilities Incorporated, and we have started the process of having some workshop with shelter managers specific to the challenges and issues relating to persons with disabilities. So we started on the 9th of June, and we'll continue throughout the month into early July, where we're going to cover all the 7 local government districts, all of the shelter managers in Dominica, because we believe that there are issues as it relates to shelter management with persons with disabilities, and we felt that we needed to partner with them. So we have this partnership, and we're hoping that come this season, 2021, we can better serve persons with disabilities.
Now while we're at it, Mr. Toussaint, the government has invested heavily in the construction of regional hurricane centers. They're not really only for hurricane, but for disaster preparedness, to ensure the safety of more of a vulnerable population. Can you give our listening audience an update on this particular initiative?
But before I give an update, PM, I think not enough credit is being given to the government for initiating the concept of regional shelters. We all know what we experienced after Hurricane Maria, with a number of schools being out for months because they were occupied with shelters. And I think post-Maria, there was a concerted effort by the government to ensure that we go into the development and construction of regional shelters, regional emergency shelters. And that is why birth was given to 2 of the shelters that are ongoing, one at Jimit with a capacity of 500. Our work is progressing satisfactorily. The entire structure is up. It's external and internal works that are now being done. Our understanding that the facility will be available for this Atlantic hurricane season, both facilities in fact, so we're very much pleased. And when we speak of regional shelters, for example, the Jimit shelter, we're talking of accommodating persons as far back as Fonkole up to Jimit, and that sort of thing. And what it really does with those regional facilities is ease the burden on the schools. As we speak, roughly about 45% of our emergency shelters are schools. And you know the challenge that we had in Maria, and of course we need the schools to get back to normalcy as soon as possible. And so those regional shelters will certainly serve us well. There is the first regional shelter that was built in Layo, and that is available, and of course will serve that purpose. And we are looking at going as far back as taking people from Collio to the regional shelter in Layo and Taro as well. So that in itself will serve well. And the intention, as I understand it from the government, is to look at the possibility of other regional shelters in the north, in the northeast. You know, we already have Casibros. Casibros will recover the Kalinago, the Petit Sofia, the Good Hope, the San Sauvé, and those areas. So essentially, the concept of regional shelters will serve us very well in terms of, as I said, easing the burden on schools. And post-hurricane, you can better serve people because oftentimes it depends on the impact of the system. You have
now, how advanced are we with the preparation of shelters? This is always a major preoccupation of all of us because we have to ensure that the most vulnerable among us are taken into full consideration. Where are we with this compared to previous years, though?
Oh, we are certainly well advanced. If you were to compare for the 13th of June of 2020 and the 13th of June 2021, we are way advanced. The first thing that we had to do was an assessment of the vulnerable people and people required to be sheltered. We did that assessment, and of course, we found that 3,921 people need to be sheltered. That is compared to 4,600 last year. So we've seen a decrease of 679 persons to be accommodated. And certainly that's as a result of the extensive government housing program where a number of individuals and families were assisted to improve their homes, and a number of people, many families, built back better. Secondly, we have the apartment buildings where vulnerable persons were accommodated. And so that in itself boosts the shelter capacity in Dominica. So certainly those two factors has helped. We've also had the neighborhood approach where people out of their good hearts and their good minds seem to assist each other. And so we have seen a drastic decline in the number of people who needs to be sheltered. And even when we do the vulnerable assessment, we recognize clearly in some communities, their homes are okay, but it's the location. For example, in Kulebe Street, there are many good homes. The fact that they're close to the river, then you have to relocate them in times of adverse weather events. Koliho is the same. So that in itself, yes. Both communities, we have rigid schools that were constructed and renovated, but because of its location, we can't use those facilities as emergency shelters. So we're pretty much way advanced as compared to 2020. And certainly we want to say hats off to the shelter managers, the number of persons who have volunteered to serve as shelter managers, and the number of disaster management committees and individuals who continue to assist in that regard. Since 2020, we have developed what we call a team approach to shelter management. Gone are the days when shelter management was basically a shelter manager and an assistant. No. We are working closely with disaster management committees to develop a team approach because clearly we see the role of shelter management as much broader than what it was. You know, we're talking of people doing registration, we're talking of people caring for the elderly, we're talking of people cleaning, providing supplies. So it's a wide range of activities, and so that cannot be left to one individual or two individuals to do so. And so we are working in ensuring that we have this team approach, and so far that is working pretty well for us.
Yeah, and of course we want to encourage private homeowners, you know, those of you who wish to make your homes available as shelters in the restricted communities. I know of the challenges that we've had in the past, but there are guidelines which persons seeking shelter need to follow. And there has been an improvement, an enhancement of those guidelines, correct?
Yes, in fact, we've had to develop since 2020 a COVID-specific guideline for shelters. We have our shelter rules. This is standard, where it's pretty clear to most Dominican, or if not all Dominicans, so that is clear. But we had additionally, because of COVID-19, and we have had discussion with the health authorities since last year, we have done a revision this year because we clearly recognize that we need to continue. And so there are guidelines. For example, anyone coming to the shelter will require to wear a mask. That's mandatory. The whole sanitizing, the cleaning of the shelters, and what have you. In terms of the spacing, we're still looking at between 3 to 4 feet of spacing and that sort of thing. And we want as much as possible to have families together at the shelter. So these are some of the COVID-19 guidelines that we've developed in shelters, and all we're asking for the general public is to cooperate. Because we know sometimes people have difficulties in understanding that what we're doing it for ourselves. We're doing it to improve and to enhance our shelter administration in Dominica. And so we're looking forward to the wider public understanding that, we have to have rules. So we have our shelter rules that says no weapons, no this, no that, no pets, no animals, and all of those things. I often tell people that, certainly you don't come to the shelter with your hands swinging. The hand swinging meaning that you just come empty. So yes, we'll be providing masks, and I want to make it categorically clear. We will be providing masks, but we will be specifically looking at the most vulnerable, right? So we're not going to provide masks for everybody. But certainly, we will be looking at the most vulnerable, the elderly, the persons with disabilities, the children, the women, and provide masks. So we want to make it clear that, nobody just simply come in and say, well, where's my mask or my quantity of masks? Because one will clearly understand that individual and families have certain responsibilities.
Particularly my friends at VACAS, that my home continues to be a shelter. We have a manager, we have a whole team, we have a cook, we have cleaners, we have everything in place again this year. We're hoping that we won't be affected by a hurricane, but we have to be prepared and prepared fully. Now, I know the local government department, along with the ODM, have been improving the various community shelters we have. Can you give us an update on those?
Oh, yes, indeed. In fact, as we speak, we have a major project. It's called Shelter Enhancement Project that we're doing. We're partnering with the International Organization for Migration, IOM. And that project really entails the improvement or renovation of 7 emergency shelters. That's the Lower Pennville Resource Center, the Cottage Community Center, the Sinuko Resource Center, the Point Michelle Community Center, the Old School at Lother, the Eggleston Pavilion, and there's one else. Which one did I forget? Yeah, I think that's basically it. The projects are completed. And the Cochrane Old School, I forgot. Why did I forget Cochrane? Yeah, the Cochrane Old School. Basically, works done on those projects were improving the roof. So we had, in some instances, to remove the entire and remake the roof or rebuild the roof. Improve all of the toilets and the washroom facilities and the windows and the doors. Complete painting. There's alternative water supply. Each of those shelters were equipped with water pumps so that we can take the water to the water containers that we have. And the projects are completed. All projects are completed and executed well. In addition to that, we are going to provide supplies to 55 emergency shelters. So we're talking of cots, refrigerators, stoves, blankets, first aid kits, and the likes. So we are going to make that possible to all the shelters. The stocks are on island. In fact, we are concerned about the issue that we have had in the past. Whenever we put stock or supplies at shelters, when the next season comes and you are doing an inventory, you find the 150 cots you had is now down to 125 cots. They somehow travel. And so that is one of the concerns that we have. But nonetheless, we are going to have those first supplies to the shelters this coming week. And we will start with the community centers. So we're going to start with the 7 that we've enhanced and go to the resource centers and community centers and ensure that we are going to have those supplies. And we are developing a mechanism because we're working with disaster management committees. And we're going to be pretty strict in terms of inventory. So we are going to assign specific individuals to do the inventory, and they will have that responsibility in turn to ensure that proper inventory is done. So the next season, 2022, we're not going to ask or find out where the cots were. And so that is one of the things that we're looking at, and we really want to say hats off to IOM in the execution of that project. Our intention is to continue. I've already started discussion with IOM as to how we can do a third phase, because this is the second phase. The first phase, we had rehabilitated 16 emergency shelters and provide requisite supplies to those 16 emergency shelters. So we're looking at the third phase and see how can we improve and enhance. And I need to say as well that under the direct enhance project under the Green Climate Fund, there was also some funding or allocation for the improvement of emergency shelters. I think is in the tune of 1.5 million US dollars. So we have identified some of those facilities that we have that we can improve and enhance, and so that we can better prepare the communities as far as shelter management is concerned.
Okay, excellent. Well, I'm happy to hear all of this and a lot of positive things happening there. Now, you reference the COVID period within which we're living now and the guidelines that we have to adhere to wearing the mask. I believe it's important for us to reiterate some of those guidelines. I mean, for example, are we encouraging people to get vaccinated as well? Because that's going to be an important element, that if person A is fully vaccinated and person B is not vaccinated at all, that'll create some challenges for us. Yeah.
That is critical. In fact, I mean, one person jokingly tell me, "Are you an advocate for COVID-19 vaccination?" Because Mr. Tosin, all you're talking about is, are you vaccinated? Get vaccinated. And I said yes, because the fact is, when you are vaccinated, I am vaccinated, we all are vaccinated, it makes life much easier for all of us. And shelter management is such that we have people, a number of people. And one of the things that and I want to say it publicly, that we have adjusted our form to include whether you are vaccinated or not. And so if you are vaccinated, you would have to show some proof. So we're encouraging people who are vaccinated, when they come into the shelter, please bring in your card, because we need to record whether you are vaccinated, because we can better prepare individuals and families as they've been sheltered. And so we really want to encourage the public, the listening public and the viewing public, to those of you who have all this misconception and the myths about vaccination. It's something that is necessary, because it makes life much easier for us. One person once told me we need to free up, that kind of thing. So it's something that we need to encourage people, because we have different people from different backgrounds going to the shelter, and it's important that it's still not too late. People can get vaccinated, and it's better. So, and we'll continue with the isolation. It's not necessarily, because what we're doing now with COVID, we have to, in the shelters, designate an isolation area for anybody who seems to show any symptoms. We have to isolate those individuals. So an isolation area will be identified in each of the shelters, so that once people show some symptoms, we would have to identify them and refer them to the health authorities. But clearly, PM has indicated, we need to, and we're encouraging people to get vaccinated.
Thank you very much. Now, Mr. Pascal, as the hurricane season advances, we need to always remain alert and prepared. How important is it to develop a plan before the hurricane season, or at least early in the season? And the other part of my question is, what should that plan entail?
Okay, PM, it is very important to develop a plan before the start of the season. And as you rightly said, if you have not yet done so, now is a good time to start. Having a plan helps individuals, families, communities, businesses, and the national system to be better able to respond and to recover from the impacts of a tropical cyclone. Having a plan helps everyone assess what their needs are likely to be, what actions should be taken, who should take the various actions, and how to access support. However, having a plan does not mean that all is well. If the plan is not known by everyone, or if it's not properly resourced, then it is useless. So we should design our plans around the resources. It doesn't make sense say that you're going to use a helicopter to take you from Sylvania to Roseau if you know you do not own a helicopter. So the plan should be realistic. It should also be flexible and adaptable, because every hazardous impact is different, even though it's a hurricane, but every hazardous impact is different. So plans should clearly outline in simple language your roles and responsibilities and your likely needs. For example, if you have a family plan, it should cover basics, such as deciding where you will evacuate to. the location of the public shelter, packing your emergency supplies, having a communications plans, etc. Overall, the plan should aim to save lives, protect property, and reduce downtime. You do not want when the system is approaching us that now you're scratching your head thinking what you're going to do in terms of planning.
Now, what about, though, the issue of your environment, though? You know, should we not be looking at our places and to see whether we have any trees that need pruning and,
yes,
and drains cleared to mitigate against any impact?
Definitely, PM. In your emergency plan, you should cater for cutting of trees, clearing of drains to reduce flooding. Like I said, each tropical cyclone, you have different hazards. So your plan must be flexible. So you should cater for this cutting of your trees in your neighborhood, clearing your drains to reduce flooding, all the hazardous impacts, and you should look at mitigative measures.
Just to remind the audience, you can call us if you wish, 225-3400.
For meteorology and hydrology, and we also had one of our staff, Mr. Mandela Christian, speaking on the regional response mechanism. We have developed several PSAs, and hats off to Digicel for airing these PSAs for free and on their graphic channels. We have also, at your favorite pizza place, I think it's Turkey's Pizza, where there's a display screen. So every opportunity we get to showcase disaster management efforts, we're doing so.
What about the family communications plan? I mean, do we highlight this, and how important is this that we should have in place? And also to the businesses and the communication plans.
Yes, definitely. So all these PSAs, we are trying our best to capture all these the family plan, the business plans. We're encouraging the business sector to have their business preparedness plans, that is for before the event, and also their business continuity plans for after the event, so that they can bounce back better and bounce back quicker. We also have the family communications plans. It's an emergency, we say emergency planning starts at the home. So we want to ensure that the families are, all families are safe and secure. So anyone can feel free to contact us, and we will try our best to assist them in whatever way possible.
Thank you. I'm told we have a caller on the line. Hello, good evening to you.
Hi, good evening. Good evening.
Yes, sir. Hi, welcome, please.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Prime Minister. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Good evening.
This is Corporate Joseph. I'm calling from Boston, Massachusetts.
Yes, sir, welcome.
And I'd like to say this is an awesome program and very informative. I was going to ask the question about using the opportunity to remind the population to get vaccinated, but I guess you guys touched that. I think that's a good thing to help motivate the population to get vaccinated. But also, I would like to know what plans you all have in place to contact the diaspora in different states, in the United States, or different countries, in the event that there's a disaster, that you can reach them as soon as possible so they can get their assistance, get the people that work in getting things together ASAP. So do you have anything in place for that? Or are you in contact with these different communities or groups in the different countries like the United States, London, Canada, and the Caribbean islands?
Yeah, well, from the government standpoint, our points of contact and communication will be our embassies and missions. So these embassies and missions will become the official source of information and coordination of any response mechanism that we'll have to trigger. So we start with there, and of course we have CDMA, who plays its part in communicating on our behalf in the event that we are we are cut off, and which we hope and pray God that won't happen again. And also the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States Secretariat. So, but the main point of contact, if we have no contact with Dominica, will be our embassies and consulates and missions. Okay? And of course, we can provide. We'll have to. We need to put this on the ODM website, the contacts for the various missions. But thank you very much, Mr. Joseph, and greetings to you, your wife, and your entire family in Boston. Now, Marshall, how do members of the public, though, keep abreast of weather events?
Yes, we provide daily weather reports via the various radio stations. We also have a website, which is weather.gov.dm. We also have an email sign-up service on our website. There's also a telephone number you can call, 449-1752, which is broadcast every day during our weather reports. We do television programs when necessary. We also have a Facebook page, Dominica Met. We also have a WhatsApp weather group. And recently, we acquired BIP from Digicel. And that is Dominica Met Service, or BIP/767 weather.
Now, I often hear complaints from the public about the timeliness of the weather bulletins. Can you explain your process at the Met Office, and how do you decide on the levels of alert, and when should they be issued?
Well, indeed, there is a process involved with the preparation of bulletins. So when a bulletin is issued by the National Hurricane Center, for instance, we will look at that bulletin very closely and do our own analysis with discussion, and we would reproduce that bulletin with special reference to Dominica, making that bulletin specific to Dominica, specifying distance, time, and the time of arrival, etc., specific to Dominica. And we try to do that in the shortest possible time, ensuring that we put out timely and authentic information which can be used by the public to make the correct or the right decision to save life and property. Now, the level of alert, which would be a watch or warning, comes with the threat level based on the direction of motion and the projected direction of motion, and also the intensity. Dominica Met Service is the official source or the designated authority for weather information. Now, we focus on Dominica. The Met Office information is reliable because the Met Service staff are trained. They are competent and qualified to monitor and understand weather patterns and developments by the use of various tools to analyze surface and upper level air charts, to interpret satellite, which would include visible satellite imagery, infrared satellite imagery, radar, and weather prediction models for the preparation of daily weather forecasts and adverse weather information, and to interpret meteorological information in coded form. Now, we communicate directly with the National Hurricane Center, the Caribbean Institute for Meteorology and Hydrology, the French Met Office, which is Météo France in Guadeloupe and Martinique, and other Met services in the region. And importantly, we also have the local knowledge and the experience.
So you tell the public that you are the man for information on weather in Dominica, and they can go on the internet and do all what they can, but they should listen to you. And the ODM.
Definitely.
Definitely. Okay, I agree with you on that. And we should, official source of weather information is the Met Office and ODM in Dominica. So it's important for us to pay attention to the bulletins and to the advisories from them. I know we all access the internet and we all follow all sorts of weather sources, which is fine, but the ODM, as Mr. Alexander is saying to us. Now, we have been speaking about the national plan and bringing the plan down to the communities and how that national plan impacts the communities and families and businesses. But I wanted us to reinforce what actions can business owners take, property owners take in their own preparation for the hurricane season. And I'm posing this question both to you, Mr. Pascal and Mr. Toussaint.
I mentioned it earlier that the business places or institutions, they should have this preparedness plan that would outline their roles and responsibilities before an event, and they should also have a business continuity plan. And I think the DIC have been preaching that to its membership. In terms of the community, the community itself should have a community plan. They should be looking out for each other, looking out for their neighbors, looking out for the most vulnerable in their communities as to what actions they could take to minimize the effects of any adverse weather conditions.
I just want to add to what Fisher has said, and just to inform the listening public that there's basically a four-pronged approach to disaster risk reduction management in Dominica. Well, tier of responsibility. There is individual responsibility. So individuals have a responsibility to ensure their safety, to ensure that their homes are prepared. And I think I want to extend that we must look at disaster risk reduction more from a perspective of a January to December as opposed to a June to November. Because there are other hazards that may impact us outside of the hurricane season. You're talking of earthquake, possible volcanic eruption, tsunami, you're talking about fire and the like. So when we're talking of disaster risk reduction and disaster management, we have to look at it from a standpoint of a yearly event. And so that is where the family, the individual responsibility comes. So it is the individual responsibility to ensure that he or she prepares.
To say, hold your point. There is a caller on the line. Hello, caller, please.
Hi, good afternoon, PM.
Hi, welcome.
I wanted to ask the panelists what coordination has been done for the connection with the diaspora after a possible disaster or hurricane. As you know, we would be interested to know how our family and friends are doing. And I was wondering whether that.
Yeah, we've yes, thank you, sir. Yeah, someone earlier called a similar question. We haven't taken into consideration our experiences in 2017. We have this understanding of the OECS Commission based in St. Lucia, and also our embassies, missions, and consulates in the various parts of the world who will help with the communication and contact and coordination of any relief efforts or response efforts, which those of you in the diaspora would need to act on and to facilitate. So that's in place, but we've also enhanced our communication capabilities in Dominica, so that if we are impacted with a similar event, as was the case with Maria in 2017, we would not be completely shut off from the rest of the world for any undue period of time. So we have a more resilient telecommunications system, but we also have a backup system. And of course,
and I spoke of the individual responsibility. And then we have the community responsibility. And Fisher spoke of the issue of the community plan. But important in this community plan is the issue of hazard mapping. You have got to have within that plan a mapping of the hazardous area in the community. And so we call it hazard mapping. We have to identify resources within the community, both human and otherwise, equipment and otherwise in the community, and the skill set in the community that is captured. And importantly as well is the disaster management committee and the personnel and the various subgroupings of that disaster committee. For example, the community disaster management committees often take the shape of NIPO. So there are several subcommittees like NIPO. So you have public education, just like NIPO. You have communication, you have first aid, you have recovery, reconstruction and recovery, and you have food and general supplies, something of that nature. Yes. So you have that sort of scope in the communities, and that is important. And as Fisher indicated, that the community has a responsibility to take care of itself. And I just want to bring our listeners up to date to what we refer to as the blueprint for taking Dominica to the first climate resilient country in the world, the Climate Resilient Recovery Plan 2020-2030. And coming out of that, one of the key pillars is that of strong communities. Strong communities is the communities having the ability to rebound within a short space of time after any adverse weather event. And what we've been doing collaboratively with Syria, and that's the Division of Local Government, is implementing what we call a Community Emergency Readiness Initiative. And we have started with the 10 most vulnerable communities in Dominica, the Good Hope, Saint-Sauveur, Petite-Soufrière, Bacatel, Tetmon, Loubière, Clifton, Capuchin, Cocoyer. We've started with those communities in building the capacity of the community. So we have enhanced the disaster management committees in several of those communities. And what we're looking now is to have a series of capacity building exercise training programs for those communities. We have started already in the Good Hope, Saint-Sauveur, Petite-Soufrière area and in Loubière to cover Tetmon, Bacatel, and Belleville-Chopin. And we're looking at areas such as strengthening community approaches to disaster management. So the individuals are going to be exposed to how we see that they, as community individuals, can enhance their capability and their capacity. And we're looking at all radio communication, ham radio communication. We're looking at damage assessment, which is very critical. We're looking at first aid and CPR. And very importantly, and one of the things that we have to mention at both the community and national level is the whole issue of simulation exercise. I think we need to make that part of our everyday life as we talk of disaster risk reduction in Dominica. So that serious approach will continue. We are hoping to begin to work with, and we started with the 16 more vulnerable communities. We have categorized communities in Dominica into 4 broad-based categories. Most vulnerable, which identified 10 of those. More vulnerable, there are 16 more vulnerable communities. Vulnerable of another 20-something, more vulnerable, and least vulnerable of another 30-something. So we're going to work with them in phases intentionally. Well, our intention really is to ensure that we cover the entire island so that we build the capacity and communities will be able to better respond to adverse weather events.
Excellent. We're coming to a close. Any final words, Mr. Alexander?
Yes, in closing, I want to say that the Dominican Met Service is not about creating panic in the public, but we are about providing the information required for the preparation in an effort to save life and property. As I mentioned earlier, it only takes one. We provide the information, but the cycle is complete when the public responds. So you don't listen to rumors and you don't spread rumors.
Okay. That's a nice way to put it. Mr. Pascal, please.
Well, as Tuse said, disaster management is everyone's business and responsibility. All should take steps to protect themselves. Remember the hazards that you're up against with a hurricane. You have flooding, you have destructive winds, you have storm surge, and you should take action to reduce the impact on you and your family, as cutting overhanging trees, ensuring your windows, doors, and roofs are weather ready, clearing the waterways to reduce flooding, etc. And all these are with the effort. You have to have your emergency plan. Where will you go? Who are your emergency contacts? You have to have your go bag, your emergency kit, and evacuate where necessary. Again, avoid spreading fake news during such times and get your information from the official source.
I want to thank all of you gentlemen. I believe it's very informative, and we want to thank you for your service and for your continued efforts. I know it's a very tedious work, but it's a reality that we have to confront. Obviously, with the hurricane season from 1st of June and now all the way to November this time. But as we said, throughout the year, we are planning and preparing for other possibilities and eventualities. I want to thank you again. Now, this week, we are continuing with our business of development. We will move to Maho on Wednesday for the official blessing of the Maho Primary School construction. The school has started, but we're going to bless the school, bless the construction site. This is an important project for the children of Maho who have been displaced since the passage of Hurricane Maria. I am personally excited for the community of Maho. This new school will be built to the modern standards and will provide the entire community with a place of learning and serve as a hub for activity where children, the youth and adults alike can develop valuable skills for employability. I look forward to you joining us there in Maho, right on the Maho playing field, where the school is being built. We are also preparing for the national budget. This budget comes at a time when we are grappling with the economic fallout of COVID-19. But we must continue to devise ways to keep our economy afloat, our people in jobs, our social programs functional, and honor our commitments to our creditors. You will hear soon much more of how we plan to stimulate growth in the local economy. Met, and more importantly, the cater. I believe in Job, the Lord giveth, the Lord taketh away. Blessed be his name. Thank you. God bless.
We are in the hurricane season. Here are some tips to keep your families and communities safe. Before a hurricane, ensure that you know your emergency shelters. Contact the Office of Disaster Management for information on shelters closest to you. Have disaster supplies on hand, non-perishable canned food and water, portable battery-operated radios, flashlights and extra batteries, essential medicines, first aid kits, cash and bank cards. In the home, protect your windows. A low-cost approach is to put up plywood panels. Trim branches away from your home and cut all dead or weak branches on any trees on your property. Check into your home and auto insurance. Confirm that policies are valid and coverage is appropriate. Make arrangements for pets and livestock. Develop an emergency communication plan. Make sure that all family members know what to do. Teach family members how and when to turn off gas, electricity, and water. During a hurricane watch, listen to the radio or television for hurricane progress reports. Avoid open flames such as candles and kerosene lamps as a source of light. If power is lost, turn off major appliances to reduce power surge when electricity is restored. Store drinking water in clean jugs, bottles, and cooking utensils. During a hurricane warning, if you need to evacuate your home, lock up and go to the nearest shelter. Take blankets or sleeping bags to the shelter. Listen constantly to a radio or television for official instructions. Store valuables and personal papers in a waterproof container on the highest level of your home. Stay inside, away from windows and glass doors.